Welcome back. It's like we never left. This is Two-Way Tonight, and I'm Mark Halperin. After a week off, we are tan rested, ready, and eager for your participation in tonight's great episode. I say it's great not because of anything to do with me, but because of our guests tonight. Two of our favorites, I would say my favorites, but also fan favorites. Kristin Davison, Republican, Steve Elmendorf, the Democrat. They will both be here in a moment after a brief look at today's top headlines, and then we'll bat things around a little bit and then get to your participation. So if you're here on the Two-Way platform, like Alan or Matthew or anybody else who's got their camera on, raise your hand. And if you've never asked a question before, tonight could be the night when you get the opportunity, not of a lifetime, but of tonight. So please raise your hand if you want to participate. If you're watching on X or on YouTube, don't raise your hand. Don't put smack in the chat. Think about peace, love, and understanding like it's a mantra. It's everything you do. And if you put smack in the chat, delete it. Have second thoughts. Have some connection to humanity. There's a lot going on in the world that would benefit from humanity, and we'll run through some of that. So now our top stories tonight. Benjamin Netanyahu has been in Washington, D.C. today, in theory, meeting with the president at this hour for some dinner. I don't know. Do they do kosher at the White House? I don't know. But here's a great photo. This is Prime Minister Netanyahu and his entourage from their time in Washington today. Sam, can you make that big so everybody can see it? I can't see it really. Can you make that big? There you go. No, not yet. I'm going to make it big because I would like to see it bigger. There you go. There's the prime minister surrounded by his aides. He travels with an enormous, what we call in the business, package. Travels with advisors of all sorts and security wherever he goes. And that's a great picture. I don't know, is that Blair House? I bet it's Blair House across the street from the White House. In any event, the president did not open up his 4 o'clock photo bill sign or executive order signing. And as far as we know, he's no plans to speak tonight with the prime minister. His press secretary did speak today in a 1 o'clock briefing for about 30 minutes. And she said a whole bunch of stuff, which I'll get to in a moment. There were some raids in federal officials, federal officers, raids in Los Angeles today in MacArthur Park. They said they were looking for an MS-13 hideout. We'll show you some of that. More provocative words from the head of the Border Patrol. The border czar, Mr. Homan, also talking about how he's going to be coming for New York City after the new mayor takes office, whoever that is. More conversation today, including at the White House briefing, about the proclamation by the FBI that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide and did not have a client list. We'll show you some of that. And on tariffs, the president did as he said he would. Not always the case with the tariff policy. He sent letters, first several, including to Japan and South Korea, of what the White House says will be many letters telling other countries that they can negotiate deals by the beginning of August, or they will face at least 25% tariffs. And then Andrew Yang, who is central to the formation of the Forward Party, an attempt to form a new party, according to Politico, has met with Elon Musk. We'll talk about that with our guests as well. So, as always, feel free to participate. If you'd like to be in the conversation, raise your hand if you're here on the Two-Way platform. And again, we'd love for folks who've never raised their hand before to do so. Tomorrow night, this program will be on again, but then shortly after at 7:30 Eastern time, we will be back with another episode of Cancer Decoded. Dr. Patrick Soon-Chung and I will have as our guest Callie Means, who's an advisor to this administration on health issues and has some special connections to the issue of cancer. So Callie Means will join us tomorrow night at 7:30. Please write that on your calendar. All right, a brief word from our sponsor, and then we'll be joined by Steve Elmendorf and Kristin Davison and you for your questions. Cozy Earth is our sponsor here, and it's summer, and I've been telling you since they joined us as a sponsor how great their stuff is, including viscose from bamboo. Everything they make that way naturally whisks away heat and moisture. So I was on a trip last week while we were off, and I went to a very warm place, and I brought with me a couple pairs of shorts and a pair of jeans and my Cozy Earth pants. And I wore the pants every day. every day. They were the most comfortable thing to put on, more comfortable than the shorts, certainly more comfortable than the jeans. They were light. They made me feel comfortable. It was 100 degrees and humid, and I felt great every day. And I, maybe a little bit of overkill, but I literally wore them every day during the week. That's the kind of products they make, particularly when you're warm. Nothing better. So upgrade your sleep, your summer sleep. Head to cozyearth.com. Use the code 2way for 40% off their best-selling sheets, pajamas, and more for the sleepwear. Don't forget the pants. Sleep cooler, lounge lighter. Stay cozy with Cozy Earth. All right, let's bring in our guest, please. Someone will do that for me. Kristin Davison, of course, is a Republican strategist, been here many times. I'd repeat her bio, but it would just be redundant because you've all seen her here. And Kristin, welcome. It's a beautiful outdoor location. Hope you're wearing some Cozy Earth there because it looks a little warm. And Steve Elmendorf, Democrat, also joins us here. He's been here before. Don't need to tell you about his bio, except he did work for Walter Mondale, which is important to know because Kristin was not alive when Walter Mondale ran for president. It's the only thing I'll say about that. Steve, congratulations are in order. Tell us about what's gone on with you lately.
I got married this weekend.
Congratulations.
At City Hall.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations. And
if anybody needs to get married, City Hall is a great location.
Yeah.
They have a great system. It's well done. They have 2 chapels. It's
yeah.
good.
Which City Hall was that?
New York City.
New York City. Did I tell you what happened when I got married in Chicago and I went to City Hall to get my license?
No.
I kid you not. They said, it's $40. And I said, can I give you a credit card? And they said, we prefer cash. City of Chicago, they prefer cash. Of course they do. Because probably wasn't $40. Kristin, this weekend while Steve was getting married, celebrating Independence Day, what were you up to?
I was visiting I'm actually still in the mountains in Pennsylvania. I was visiting my family. So I have 2 sisters and we had a good time. It was great.
Yeah, it looks incredible there. Where is that? Where are there mountains in Pennsylvania?
It's a little bit, it's near Scranton. So about a half hour
Scranton.
outside of Scranton. Yeah.
All right. I'm not familiar with that, but I don't doubt you. I didn't know we had mountains in Pennsylvania. All right. Let's talk first. We're going to go in no particular order. We're going to talk about Elon Musk and a third party. Here's the Politico headline, number 17. Musk and Andrew Yang have connected on a third party. And the reason I wanted to ask you guys both about this is because I haven't heard this. I've seen a few stories about it, but I haven't heard anybody discuss it in the way I want you two to discuss it. Let's say Elon Musk put you both on a retainer, like more than a Burisma retainer, like $200,000 a month or $400,000 a month, something you had to take. And he said, I want to build a third party for 26 and 2028 that has a maximum impact. Kristin, what are the things you tell him to do to earn your retainer?
I probably wouldn't take it. First of all, I don't think I
you know how hypothetical works?
I know, but it's a trick question because he still does have a full team on retainers. So we need to. I listened to this morning and it sounded like he didn't have a team, but he still has lots of political operatives that have done presidential campaigns that he still pays. So
who's that include?
So I feel like it was all reported during the campaign. He has like a full. I mean, I don't know if they still work for him, but I would assume they.
No offense to whoever they are, but they don't have the knowledge that you two have.
Well, I think the first thing he needs to do is do some image rehab, right? Because it doesn't matter what he is going to do for a new party if he's a flawed messenger. And so that was, one of the most unfortunate things as he was departing, the effort he was doing is that there was really no effort there to humanize or explain the good work he was doing with Doge and with the government. He kind of just took the brunt of everything and then left without, it's like there was a plan to get him to the door to how to cut it. And then I don't think he, and this wasn't the White House, wasn't their job. It was, Elon's job, frankly, to kind of, maintain that brand and talk about the good that came from what he did. And so I think he needs to start there and to talk about, getting back to what really inspired him to get involved to begin with. Because if you go back and listen to a lot of his podcasts, and there are so many out there that he's done interviews with, I mean, he is very earnest in why he got involved in politics. And that got lost in a lot of the shuffle. I think he took heat from both sides on a number of different things. And so I think he needs to go back there and quickly fix the messenger so that this new party, this new effort can be if he were to be successful, at least not damage him anymore. I am dubious as to whether it'll be successful or not, but it could do him and his brand more damage if it's not handled the right way. And I would say Andrew Yang is probably in that same bucket, where it looks a little bit more self-serving than, something larger than that. So I think fix the brand, get back to the root as to why you are doing this and why you were getting involved. And then he needs to stop attacking people. So the back and forth attacking Trump and the bills and this and that, you can like explain your differences without making enemies. I think when you're trying to start a new party, the best thing would be not to make enemies in the process. So those would be my three things off the bat.
All right, Steve, what would you add to that list?
Well, I generally tell people, if I can't help you, I don't really want your money. I don't mean that to be self-serving, but like it's not a good business model to take people's money when you can't help them. And I really think he's in sort of an unhelpful position. I think he has put himself, he put himself fully in the Trump camp, which turned off a whole group of Democrats and independents. And then he annoyed Trump, and Trump is now full-throated attacking him. So I feel like he's sort of in no man's land, and I'm not sure what lane you could potentially create for him. As long as you have Donald Trump and his loyal supporters, and you have a lot of Democrats who are very anti-Donald Trump, Elon Musk does not solve any problems for either group. And so I'm just not sure who he could, I don't know who you could get. Now, put aside the historical history, as you know, Mark, of third-party efforts in this country have always failed.
Yeah.
Recent. I mean, they're just really hard to do, like it or not. The states and the national is a two-party system, and you really have to try and take over one of the parties. It's very hard to come up with a third party. So I'm not sure he really has any path. And Andrew Yang, no, I mean, I just don't think Andrew Yang is not a brand. Andrew Yang is not someone with a constituency out there. So I just don't know where they would go with this.
Right. All right. So thank you both for that. Here's a dirty little secret. There are people who get paid to cover politics and campaigns who don't know anything about either, and also don't know the difference between politics and campaigns. I have a ton of humility about this. I've covered my share. I don't think I'm the most ignorant about politics and campaigns, but you guys actually know about politics and campaigns. I don't mean to pick on this particular reporter. You guys know this Alex Burns of Politico. So I saw this flashy headline: how Elon Musk's third-party gamble could succeed. And so I think, well, here's Kristin Davison and Steve Elmendorf. If I were running for president, my first two hires, and then I say, well, Alex Burns, you guys are both very down on Musk's prospects of doing this successfully. And here's a guy, Alex Burns, paid to know about politics and campaigns. And again, they're not the same thing. And he says, here's how it could succeed. So I thought, well, I'm going to read that. And so he says Musk could have 3 planks in his platform to succeed with a third party. Okay, so the third one is securing American technological and scientific supremacy. Now, again, I don't know anything about politics or campaigns, but I mean, who's against that? Like, that doesn't seem to be some great differentiator. Okay, but here are the other two, and this is where I can't help but laugh at all reporters, or almost all reporters. Radical fiscal rebalancing. Now, if you think there's a constituency for that, then I got a $200 retainer I'd like from you. So that's the first one, radical fiscal rebalancing. And then the other one is, and this one makes me laugh even harder, championing free trade. Championing free trade. Like, those are two things that might be good policy. But if you think those are good politics, again, I've got a $250,000 a month retainer I'd like to get from you. So first thing I'd like to ask you is, leave Musk out of it. Is there such a thing as an issues agenda that would somehow outflank the two major political parties right now? Steve.
Well, that is not the issue agenda. Like, maybe there is, maybe, to me, there's a anti-establishment, Trump has been the anti-establishment, I'm going to blow up the system. So he doesn't leave a lot of room for the anti-establishment, I'm against the status quo, which is where most people would come in a third party, is I'm against the status quo. So I just don't know where it is. The three issues that Musk talked about do not have a large political constituency that's going to upend the current system in any way.
Yeah. Kristin, do you see an agenda for a third party right now?
I don't. There needs to, part of, I do believe why President Trump was so successful in broadening the Republican Party's base and outreach was because it really was settled on a number of principles, right? Not specific. I mean, those are, I mean, sometimes you get candidates who want to have 15 different points on their policy page, and you kind of need to walk them back and say like, hey, what's the big idea, right? What's the overarching message? That's lacking in these 3 points. Now he could, it sounds like he should just go form a C4 and advocate for free trade and support candidates who on both parties who support it. I mean, that would be a better use of his resources and effort versus creating a political party around a policy like that. But you know, parties will be successful because at the end of the day, they need to have a uniting human factor to them. You know, even Democrats who I think they're trying to find their way in the wilderness right now don't know what that is for them right now, whereas Republicans are a little bit more cohesive on the driving force behind, you know, our set of principles. So no, I don't think it's there for a party, but it does sound like he has some great ideas for a C4. So he should probably go take a look at that. And I'm sure that there would be plenty of operatives, Democrat and Republican, who would take that retainer to go support those types of candidates.
All right.
Mark,
So
can I make one other point?
Yes, sir. Please do.
As I think about this, what Donald Trump has really formed the third party. I mean, Donald Trump, the traditional Republican Party of George Bush and Ronald Reagan, which was fiscally conservative, free traders, pro-immigration, and a muscular foreign policy, does not exist anymore. And Donald Trump has gone to a different place on all of those four pillars of the former Republican Party and created a new party that they have all followed behind, like it or not. So he's created that anti-establishment.
I agree. They call it the Republican Party, but it's really not. As you say, it's a new party. I was so taken aback, but I shouldn't have been this weekend. It was President Bush 43's birthday. And I retweeted something like from the library or something celebrating his birthday. Maybe it's from Jeb, I don't know. And the vitriol poured on that man's head. He's one of the loveliest people I've ever met. And he made some policy choices that didn't turn out great, but just the abject vitriol poured on that man's head is testament to, Steve, what you're saying, which is he has lost the Republican Party, or at least the active vocal part of the Republican Party. Just kind of incredible. All right, Steve, you're friends with Jared Polis, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and Kristin, you've never met Jared Polis.
I have not, but I've been to Colorado. And
yeah, okay, that's right in the ballpark. Anyway, Governor of Colorado. Colorado has 3 people talked about as potential presidents. Maybe not John Hickenlooper much anymore, but he did run. Michael Bennett's run, and I predict will run again. And then Jared Polis, people talk about. So we talked about this in the morning meeting, and Dan and Sean weighed in. But I want you two to weigh in. You talked about the Democratic Party looking for a messenger. A lot of them are really being vocal about the reconciliation law and criticizing it and predicting the demise of rural hospitals and hungry children and all sorts of impacts from it. Here's a video made by Jared Polis, and I want you both to evaluate it in terms of whether you think it's an effective piece of political communication. Roll that, please. Okay, Kristin, just leaving aside whether you agree with his view of the bill or not, is that a good piece of political communication? If not, why not?
Yeah, I listened to you guys this morning. I'm going to agree with Dan on this one. I don't think it's as cringe as the internet thinks. Because it kind of fits his brand, right? He's like a khaki pant wearing like awkward uncle. So I think it's like right there for the brand he wants to exude, because you have AOC and these other people. Like sometimes when some of those folks do stuff, it's a little thirsty, it's a little too much. I think this was right in Polis's brand. He's just like that, mountain kind of awkward uncle, and he's just frustrated with what's going on. I didn't think it was cringe, and we're talking about it still, and people are talking about it, which Trump has taught us is the game.
Yeah, no one's talking about it but me. Steve.
This is the first I've heard of it, so
do you need to see it again?
I don't know if it's viral or not.
You want to see it again?
I think Kristin hit it right on the nail on top of the head, which is he is sort of your awkward, uncle, father, interesting, and he's been a very successful governor, and he's been a little counterintuitive on some things. And, governors have a much better place than members of Congress in terms of their ability to be popular, because they actually get stuff done. And he's been a good governor in a purple state. and I think it's kind of funny, and you want to be authentic and a little funny. So
All
I
right.
don't think he's going to be president, though.
Why not?
There's a lot of people who want to be president, and my gut just tells me I'm not sure he's going to be president.
All right. I got a text just now from Dan Turntine who said, "Ha ha 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 ha," because now it's 3-2 because you two inexplicably. By the way, if Musk asks me if you guys should get the $200,000 retainer, I'll say, well, the evaluation of the Polis ad was so off base. I'm not sure. You're better off talking to Yang than YouTube. All right. Let's talk about trade. The president today sent letters, number 13, to the South Koreans and the Japanese, and the White House says they're going to send more, saying basically you got till August. Kristin, is the president's trade war right on schedule, or is it off track, or somewhere in between?
Every day, I think we've all kind of learned that when I was surprised that the big beautiful bill, rightfully, wrongfully got passed on time or early. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised there, but I don't know if these deadlines, I don't know how real they are, and I don't know how many people are paying attention to them, because especially when it comes to trade, I think many people look at this as all of the discussion around it, all the deadlines, everything is all part of a larger negotiation process and business deal that, frankly, I trust the businessman to figure out versus anyone else. So I don't know necessarily how many people have marked on their calendar that today was the day they said this or that trade deal was going to get done. I think most people recognize it as a process, and that a lot of those dates are, key parts of that.
Steve, if the president asked you if his trade efforts were on track, what would you say?
I don't think they're on track. I think they are. The uncertainty is really troubling for business, for small business, for people who are, trying to run the pet store and import stuff. I think it is the guys who are building houses and need lumber. I think that business craves some certainty, and the economy craves some certainty, and he's providing I guess the markets have sort of priced in the 10%, and he keeps punting everything else, as he did again today, to August 1. So maybe they just think nothing's going to happen. I think a more successful trade policy would be not these across the board, country by country, but more looking at individual products and deciding, we need to compete better on steel or on something else, and having a tariff specific to a product that we think we could do better here, rather than just Japan, 25%. I think it's bad economics.
When will that become apparent to everyone?
I think, it's like a lot of the things he's done. It's, I'm not an economist, so I don't know what the lead time is, but it strikes me at some point there's a series of things he's doing that are creating uncertainty in the economy, whether it's the next quarter or the quarter after, that are going to begin to have an impact on regular people's, purchasing.
Okay. Again, if you want to be on the conversation, please raise your hand. Lots going on immigration. Here is some video from MacArthur Park. As I mentioned earlier, federal agents moving into MacArthur Park. Goes on for a while, but let's look at a little bit of number 3, please.
Breaking news here. This is in MacArthur Park. Scott Reif is in Air 7 HD. And Scott, we have a lot going on. We haven't seen much in the way of detentions at this point, but we see a lot of confrontation. What are you seeing?
Absolutely. There's a lot of activity and a big deployment here, bigger than we've really seen in the past for the most part. You see the armored vehicle traveling right through MacArthur Park right now. You see a lot of people trying to antagonize them, if you will, coming up to the vehicle, stopping it, and LAPD has just responded. It looks like LAPD is going to be involved in some crowd control. You see them there on the bottom of your screen, but we'll push back into the armored vehicles. One of the things that is so difficult, these agents are not identified. You can't tell if it's ICE, you can't tell if it is National Guard.
Listen
we had a convoy of National Guard vehicles go through here a few moments ago, and they left. We have 4 or 5 vans standing by as well, and then all the other.
To number 4.
I am going to say,
Mayor Bass, I need to get my phone and we're departing.
Okay. All right. Mayor Bass.
Mayor Bass.
Any comment, Mayor Bass?
Thank you.
Mayor Bass, any comment?
Yes, my comment is they need to leave, and they need to leave right now. They need to leave because this is unacceptable.
Who did you speak
Just
with?
wait and see.
Mayor Bass,
They will be leaving soon.
Mayor Bass, who did you speak with on the phone just now? Who did you speak with on the phone?
The head of customs.
Wow.
All right, and here's a tweet number 5 from the head of the Border Patrol in response to Mayor Bass saying they should leave. Gonna have to make that bigger.
This is Fox's immigration reporter.
Okay, Fox Immigration Reporter. I spoke to Border Patrol Chief, who was the official on the phone with Mayor Bass at MacArthur Park. I asked him for his message to her as she demands the raids. And I don't work for Karen Bass. Better get used to us now, because this is going to be normal very soon. We will go anywhere, anytime we want in Los Angeles. And here's Mr. Homan, the colleague of the head of the Border Patrol, the White House immigration czar, number 6, please.
Zoran Mondani, the likely next mayor of New York City's promised not to cooperate with you or with ICE or with deportations of any kind. Do you have a plan? Is there a plan to work around that? How are you going to handle that?
Feel like I'm at, we're going to be in New York City, and President Trump said it 2 weeks ago. We're going to double down and triple down in sanctuary cities. Why? Not because they're a blue city or blue state, because we know that's where the problem is. We know they're releasing public safety threats and national security threats to the streets every day because they don't honor our detainers. We know that. We don't have that problem like in Florida, where every sheriff in the state's working with us. So where we're going to send our assets, we're going to send them where the problem is. Sanctuary cities. So I've said it before, we'll flood the zone with sanctuary cities.
Okay. So, Kristin, there was speculation by the media and Democrats, maybe some Republicans, that the president's immigration policies would cause a backlash and be politically advantageous to Democrats. To what extent are you seeing signs of that?
I'm not. I think that this is, it is going to make the people kind of put their jerseys on even faster, right? So if you are a Democrat in a blue city like LA or New York or Boston, or, name your more liberal city that allows for, particularly tax dollars to go towards non-citizens, illegal immigrants, then I think you are just going to burrow down in place, and you're going to look at videos like that and twist it and make it menacing. And if you're a Republican and you're in a state that isn't in one of those cities, you're going to look at that and say, Democrats got us in this situation. Those mayors are terrible. I can't imagine there's one Republican, probably not that many independents, and probably a few Democrats that would think that Mayor Bass is doing a great job in LA. I mean, there's multiple things. I think when people see that, particularly outside of California, it just kind of gives more credibility to the beliefs they already hold. So I don't think that this entire, outrage is something that's helpful for Democrats. I mean, the reason why ICE has to go into these cities is because the mayors have not been doing their jobs, allowing for sanctuary city, allowing for taxpayer dollars, allowing for illegal immigrants to stay in hotels, to stay in apartment buildings that at the expense of citizens who pay taxes and contribute to society. I think that in November, we saw that was a losing issue for the Democrats. And I think if they continue down this path to have outrage every time and, a criminal is deported, they're going to have the same luck next fall.
Steve, I want to ask you about the Democrats on this issue, but I want to show you number 8. This is Hakeem Jeffries on The View talking about immigration.
Democrats, amid the criticisms of ICE right now due to these ICE raids, have started calling for defunding ICE. Do you think that's effective going into the midterms, and do you support those calls?
Well, I definitely think that we need aggressive oversight as it relates to the overly aggressive behavior that we've seen, from ICE, from the Department of Homeland Security. It's not what the American people actually, in my view, voted for. Yeah. Donald Trump and Republicans promised to go after violent felons, but instead they're going after law-abiding immigrant families. And in fact, in some cases, deporting American citizens and children, some with cancer.
So, Steve, let me ask you some yes/no questions, and then
Sure.
an essay question. Is immigration still on balance an issue that favors Republicans over the Democrats?
No.
No, it's more advantageous for Democrats.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of polling recently where the aggressive, provocative, cruel policies that Trump is executing are not being viewed positively.
So you'd be happy if between now and the midterms, immigration was front and center on its current trajectory.
No,
on its current trajectory.
Front and center, but I think we should not. I'm a Democrat who is not afraid of this issue. I think we need to be clearly under the Biden administration. We screwed up the issue. We need to be very clear that we are against illegals at the border. We need to be very clear that violent criminals can be deported. But what they are doing, that is not what they are doing. They are going after people who they have not proven are violent criminals. They're starting to talk about going after naturalized US citizens just because they don't like their views. I think they are taking this to a level where they are going to turn the issue against the Republicans. This is a country that was built by immigrants, that should have more immigrants, frankly, that we need immigrants who have helped the economy at both the top, the bottom, and the middle. And I think we need to stand up and be supportive of legal immigration and of immigrants who've been here a long time, who are productive members of society, and not get spooked by the Republican rhetoric.
So did you like the way Leader Jeffries framed things?
I thought he made it very clear about children, about naturalized citizens, about people who actually have committed crimes. And I don't mean, drunk driving. That is not the only, Trump talks a lot about murderers and rapists, and that's great. We should get rid of all the murderers and rapists. But the people who Tom Homan is hunting down on the streets at the 7-Eleven or at the Home Depot are not murderers and rapists necessarily.
So, Kristin, if Steve is right, the Stephen Miller school and the Homan school and the Trump school, that you can't be too aggressive about this stuff, and they'll take pictures of going after gangs juxtaposed with Karen Bass every day of the week. If Steve's right, the White House is making a horrible miscalculation.
Yeah, I just respectfully disagree on it. I do think that there is a discussion to be had on, what to do with, particularly with children when it comes to, their parents are illegal, they're dreamers, they're here. That discussion, I think Democrats could get Republicans, particularly in some of these purple districts and states. I feel like you can make Republicans a little uncomfortable on how to talk about it because, that part no one's really focusing on. So I get that part, but overwhelmingly, Americans, particularly in a lot of these swing states, saw, and not necessarily, yes, there's the danger part. They're worried about their communities. They're seeing, crime rise, but also the failure of the Biden administration and of Democrats on this issue for so long. I think that Republicans are definitely going to at least have 2 more years of right side up approval on it. You're going to get I'm sure a left leaning poll every now and then that says that Americans think the administration's going too far, but overwhelmingly, there's Democrats know that they have a problem here, and they don't have a coherent message on it, because you can't just say, okay, if you're an illegal immigrant and stay here, that will only keep the problem going. How do you fix that? How do you get that so that the system is even fair for someone who is coming? And no one is saying that we're not a nation of immigrants. No one is saying that at all. Everyone, no one on this call is saying that, but largely Trump's not saying that. And there's a reason why he did better with Hispanics and other minority groups this past election, because people who do come to this country and go through the fair way, it is unfair to them to have other people who broke the law come in here in an unfair way to take their spot in line, to not, they don't have to pay the same amount of resources for lawyers and take the test and all of that. And so I think there's a path here where we shift to celebrating the legal immigration. I mean, this Monday after the 4th of July, states all around the country, you had people being sworn in as Americans for the first time. And that's the thing that our party celebrate. I think Democrats celebrate that. And so I think you will see more of that. And that it's not an either or. I don't believe that saying that it is wrong to deport someone for breaking the law and being here illegally, by the use of the word illegal is breaking the law, is something that Americans will, it's kind of common sense. I don't know if Democrats will go down that road. There are plenty of other issues I think they can kind of, make it uncomfortable to focus on and talk through. But overwhelmingly, I think Americans want individuals who have broken the law, whether, violently or not, for that to be rectified and to have the process amended so that it's fair for those who are doing it the right way.
Okay, I don't like to put words in the mouths of the guests, but for these next questions, your only choices are yes, no, don't know, or too soon to say. Yes, no, don't know, too soon to say. And then we're going to go to your questions. So please, if you want to be on the conversation, raise your hand. This is regarding the midterms. Not where we are today, but by next year, who will have the advantage? The Democrats or the Republicans? Sorry, it's not yes, no. Democrats, Republicans, don't know or too soon to say. Democrats, Republicans, don't know or too soon to say. Who will have the advantage in the midterms on the following indices, areas? Okay, fundraising, Kristin.
I think Democrats will have a slight advantage.
Steve.
Democrats.
Interesting. Candidate recruitment, Kristin.
Historically, it should be that party out of power, so I'll say Democrats.
Steve.
Democrats.
Okay. History, Kristin.
I think it's too soon to say.
Steve.
Democrats.
Democrats. Okay. The public's view of the reconciliation bill, Kristin.
It's too soon to say.
Steve.
Democrats.
Democrats. Okay. The state of the economy and Trump views of Trump's handling of the economy, Kristin.
I think Republicans.
Steve.
Too soon to say.
Too soon to say. All right, two more, and then we're going to your questions. Social issues. The public's view of social issues, trans, abortion, etc. Kristin.
Republicans.
Steve.
Too soon to say.
Okay. And lastly, immigration, Kristin.
Republicans.
Steve.
Democrats.
Democrats. Steve's very bullish on his party.
I'm very bullish on our
Very
midterm
bullish.
prospects.
Very bullish. I see that. All right, let's bring folks in again. Tell folks where you are, what's on your mind for Kristin and for Steve. Lester, floor is yours, sir.
Hello, I am from the state of Florida, and I'm currently just, I have my own YouTube channel where I do election analysis and whatnot. And I thought that Mamdani's win was very interesting because it took Trump's playbook from 2016 and completely turned it on its face, where instead of a conservative populist uprising, it's now on the Democratic side. And you're seeing the same thing where the establishment of the Democratic Party was now trying to undermine Mamdani with Cuomo, with a lot of the PAC money and whatnot. So it's a very similar thing. And I see a lot of people, like even Dan is not even that confident that Mamdani is actually going to pull away with the race. I actually think that Mamdani right now is the clear favorite in the race. I think he probably gets like 75% of the vote because he got like, 400 and something thousand votes in the primary. Like, how is he not going to at least get 700,000 in the general? I just can't. I just can't see him not getting that. And so I think that you're going to have higher turnout because the other candidates will get more votes. But I think Zoran is the overwhelming favorite to win that. And it's kind of similar to how all the Republicans back then, and Mark, you'll know this more than anybody. You had all these Republicans. Oh, Trump's unelectable. He can't win in 2016. There's no way. And then he's ended up winning without a unified quote unquote party.
So Lester, I made the point about the similarity between Mamdani 25 and Trump 16 on my show Next Up. And for that, I was called a communist. People didn't quite understand the argument I was making. Steve, I'd love for your to respond overall to what Lester said, but also what % chance do you assign to Mamdani winning the general?
80%.
80%. Good.
I generally agree with what Lester said. I think a lot of the Democratic establishment and frankly Republican establishment are underestimating this guy. I think, as you and I have talked about already, Mark, he is a very talented communicator. He ran a campaign on a bunch of issues that, the New York Post wants to make him into one thing, a caricature. But if you watch his ads about what he's doing, some of it was quite Trumpian, and it was very focused on cost of living. It was very focused on things like, hey, I'm going to make sure you don't have to get a permit for $22,000 for your falafel thing. I mean, I think the guy, he hit a vein. He's very good communicator. I think there are a lot of people who voted for him in New York, and I spent a lot of time in New York. My recently married, my husband lives in New York, so I'm there all the time. it's more than the usual. It's not just like young people or anti-Israel people who were for him. There were a lot of well-off people in New York City who voted for him because they liked his optimistic message. They liked his cost of living message. So I think he's going to be the mayor, and I think a lot of the business community is making a huge mistake when they try and sort of they have flawed opponents to his. They don't have a real opponent, and he's going to win.
Kristin, before you come in, Steve, I just want to ask you again, thinking about next year, it seems pretty clear that the president and the president's advisors would love for Mamdani to win and to make him the face of the Democratic Party next year. Would that concern you?
I don't think they've been successful. Look, I'm not a believer that either side does a good job of making somebody who's not the president the face of a party. Republicans spent 20 years trying to make Nancy Pelosi the face of the Democratic Party, and it didn't work. They've spent the last 10 years trying to make AOC the face of the Democratic Party, and it doesn't work. Voters are smarter than that. Voters vote for the people that are in front of them in the district they live in. The mayor of New York is not, we're not electing him mayor of America. We're not electing him mayor of Texas. We're electing a mayor of New York City.
Steve, I just pro tip: when you come to New York, don't be so disparaging of the job of mayor. We think our mayor is pretty important. I hear you, Kristin. First of all, percentage chance he's mayor.
I probably agree with Steve, just because the opposition's fractured, right? I think if Eric Adams had if he could fold in everyone behind him, maybe he could give him a run, but right now it just seems like they're all going to split. So I don't know if I'd go as high as 80, but unfortunately for New York and I think the country, I think he will be the next mayor. Now, I don't know. I probably agree that it's tough to make someone else the face of the party, but if I were, free advice to every Republican candidate out there or Democrat, go and start asking Democrats who are going to run in 2026 what they think of some of the crazy things this guy has done. Do it now, because I think where he can be harmful to Democrats and helpful to Republicans is that a lot of Democrats aren't going to know how to respond to a question about him. Right. So and now it's early enough, so they're not really thinking about it. You go and ask, well, what about this policy or that policy or this lie or that lie? Get it on camera now. I mean, that will be effective in a year from now.
Right. Lester, hold on one second. Steve, I just want to ask you two more because you and I haven't caught up since we've had some developments. First of all, 80%. Who gets the other 20%?
Well, I think there's an 80% chance he's going to win. I'd say he's going to get 80.
No, I understand. I'm saying how do you allocate the 20% chance of others? Is it 20% Adams?
Maybe Adams.
Yeah, and then
I think Cuomo would have to have a complete.
And then if Hakeem Jeffries or Schumer or Gillibrand, none of whom have really endorsed Mamdani, don't appear inclined to, if they ask you for your advice, and your advice, I assume, is to endorse, and they say, well, we're worried about him, and I know all three of them are worried about him, how would you explain to them why they were wrong?
Well, I think you should endorse him. I think you should work with him. Jeffrey's going to meet with him next week. I think you should work with him. I think there's some things Mamdani can do that will send a signal to people, like keeping the police commissioner, which I think would be important, that are going to make people more comfortable. And if I'm Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, I think Mamdani's going to win. And I want to be in his tent trying to help him be the best mayor he can be for the people of New York.
All right, Lester, one more comment.
I'd say probably Mamdani, I guess, has a 75% chance in the general, and then maybe 15% goes to Adams, and then the rest just goes to everybody else. I mean, I can't. It's over. Cuomo isn't getting anywhere. It's done. He's finished. He ran a campaign like the 1980s. It's not going to work.
Lester, thank you. Grateful to you for being part of Two-Way. All right, Reed, welcome in. Speak quietly. You don't want to wake that kid up, but tell everybody quietly where you are and what's on your mind.
Reed on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. This is Hartwell. He's got the summer dog days.
Hartwell, turn up the AC or down, one or the other.
Yeah, I need to inject him with some energy. Dinner time soon. So, question: is Bessent going to be the next Fed chair?
Great question. I didn't think he was, but now I think it's possible. Kristin, what do you know about that?
Well, I don't know anything. Confirm one or the other. I don't think so. I don't know. I think he's doing such a great job where he's at. I would be shocked, I think. Maybe, but until you just said it, I didn't really hear that talk too seriously.
Steve.
He didn't shut the door on it today during the MSNBC.
He did not shut the door. Steve.
Can you do a Marco Rubio and do both jobs?
I think that's what they're going for. In all seriousness, I know you're
Yeah.
everybody's laughing, but I think that's what
I
Trump
think that's
wants
right.
to do. And I don't know, none of us are constitutional scholars, but I think Trump nominates him and the Senate confirms him. Let's see somebody sue and try to stop him. He's an interesting career arc. Never been in government, never really all that involved with politics, except raise some money for Al Gore. But for the most part, hasn't really been involved in. Has really taken to the job. Treasury Secretary in any administration, super powerful. Being Trump's Treasury Secretary is very powerful because he's very deferential if he trusts somebody to do it. So, why would you give up one of the most exciting jobs in finance to go do that more limited job? And I think the answer might be if he just wants to drop the mic and say, I was a great Treasury Secretary for a year and a half, and now I'm going to go do this. But I still am skeptical he'll take it.
I think he said, in his interview over the weekend, he still has some things he wants to get done.
Yeah.
Student debt, tackle that, and a couple of other topics, and he'll do what President Trump asked him to do. I think he's a loyalist, and I don't think the two role is out of the option for him. But he's so dadgum effective, and he's a loyalist.
He's a powerful intellect. I compare it to going from being like a cabinet secretary in a big cabinet job to being a Supreme Court justice. Like it's a different way of life. It's not nearly as engaged in decisions that affect the world. The Treasury Secretary, I mean, he's been dealing with tariffs, he's been dealing with the reconciliation bill, but he's involved in a whole bunch of other stuff. And I think it's just if somehow he wants a more limited role, but that's not typical. But he also is very intellectual, and I think he'd find the challenge of being a great Fed chair and using the power of the Fed in a different way. I think he'd find that interesting. I'm just still skeptical he's going to have everything he wants done in the current job done. But don't bet against both.
I thought his Podcast One or Pod Force One interview was really, really good for those who haven't listened to that.
Yeah.
So go listen to that one, because it gives you a great insight on what his character is like, and his background. Get to know him as a person.
Yeah, he's been very effective and seems to be enjoying it. But we'll see. Reed, thank you. Grateful to you. All right, Aaron, come on in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Kristin and Steve.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Mark. From New Jersey, born and raised in Southern California. My question is, it looks like, and maybe I'm wrong about this, that the approach that we're taking with immigration and ICE is much more theatrics, much more performance oriented versus actually, except at the border, right? So the border is, I think, without a doubt, really the same practice that Trump had in the first administration, one that should have been continued with Biden, and that's a historic own goal. But in terms of this targeting attack for looking to scoop up immigrants in LA, and it looks like in New York's next, versus like almost any other exogenous or externality in life, you go after not the supply first, you have to demand. And the demand's on the business side. And we have, it's pretty clear. We have, Title 8, 1324A, we have a prosecutorial framework for it. And I'm just wondering, like, why are we not just dropping hammers, right? I mean, arresting house moms, you use an illegal, 6 months in jail, like you get tagged as another one of these people who like paid off sending their kids to, on a fake scholarship for lacrosse. And it's like, you now are shamed with scarlet letters, and we just start blasting. And I think you will dry up a huge amount of demand if you go across business and across people in life, all the nice little cute upper middle class white neighborhoods across America. And let's see those strike teams with the boom boom door kickers. And I really do believe we can then test this instead of playing these games, because and I'm just wondering what anyone thinks, because I'm the only one that I've ever met. Maybe that freaks people out, what I just said, and good, because now we can test it. We can do a real A/B test, because it's simple to go after these, super woke cities, which, might have a few 100,000 people, but they're not going to get your 15 million. You're going to get your 15 million hitting the Sun Belt and hitting all the rich white enclaves, a couple thousand of them in the United States, that everyone's out there cleaning their windows and and doing the lawn work and everywhere else. probably outside of our houses right now.
Yep.
For everybody that's
Aaron,
middle
well
class.
framed, Aaron. Steve.
Well, we've already seen Donald Trump doesn't want to do that because Donald Trump immediately has balked at the idea of both farm workers and hospitality workers, because if you remove the illegal immigrants who work on farms and work in the hospitality industry, both industries would be crippled, and he doesn't want to do that. If you went and did what Aaron wanted to do, you would have a massive political backlash, which is maybe what some people want. I mean, the reality again is that we have a large number of immigrants in this country who may have come here illegally at one point, but who have become law-abiding citizens, engaged in their communities, provide valuable service and jobs that we need because our birth rate is going down. And that is not who people want to deport. They want to deport violent criminals, and we should do that and be aggressive about that and keep new people from coming across the border. That would be a sane policy.
Kristin.
Well, I would say, there's the reason why these cities are being targeted first. I mean, is there theater to it? I don't know. I'm not going to really cast judgment on that, but I think the volume of violent criminals is probably larger in a city that has such lax policies compared to a suburb that doesn't. And so there are just by, maybe a year from now, they move to the suburbs that you're talking about because, they've already cleaned up all the cities. But right now the cities are where the problems are, because that's where not only are these violent criminals allowed to live, they typically don't get arrested, and that's where they're allowed to thrive. So I think that's the reason I would assume that they're starting in the cities. But if you look at some of these states, there was an article in the New York Times, I think over the weekend, about how Virginia really is the test case for a lot of this. And so you see Fairfax County, which is in the suburb of DC, has had some of the largest activity in terms of deportations. And so that is kind of the suburb that you're talking about there. I mean, you cross the river from Washington, D.C. into Northern Virginia, and you are in that white, wealthy suburb. Most of those voters are, I think it's like a 7-1 Democrat location there. So I think you are seeing that in some places, but I assume you will see it more. But where the bleeding is right now is in these sanctuary cities, because not only
I have a quick follow-up, and now that you answered this, which is the Title 8, 1324, it's all about law-abiding America, right? Like, is that what we're supposed to be? That's what we're sold. Is this about laws or not? Because if the people who are hiring these people in their businesses and in their homes are breaking the law, and we're supposed to be law-abiding, and that's the message, then shouldn't we be enforcing that law? Or
well, I think some of it is a little self-enforcing too, right? What was it last week that the jobs report came out? Or gosh, I'm sorry, a little bit of July brain here, but
it was last week,
right? Where legal citizen employment was up and non-citizen employment was down. So some of this might be reporting as well, where there are companies who say, okay, wait, we have someone now in office who isn't going to let us break the law or skirt the corners anymore. We have to get back to the, letter of the law that you're talking about and make sure our papers are in order and we're not paying people under the table and all that other good stuff. So I think there's probably different phases of it. I don't think anyone has said that they don't want to follow that policy. Now, the hospitality and the farmers, I think that's probably, I don't know the details of that. They definitely need to figure out the guest worker program to make sure that those industries have that workforce in a legal way. But to your point, I don't think anyone has said throw out the law. I think a lot of these companies, just the deterrent factor of seeing that there's finally an administration, and I'm not even just hitting Democrats here. This has been a Republican and a Democrat problem for a long time. But now there's finally, an administration in office that means business on this issue. And so I think a lot of companies probably took a look at their processes and self-corrected.
Aaron, thank you. Grateful to you. Steve, which portions of the economy are strong now?
Which portions of the economy are strong?
Which sectors, which aspects? I mean, consumer spending is strong because it always is. So I'll start.
Consumer spending in the last month was down a little bit. But I mean, in general, I think you'd say that I'm just starting your list for you. Like you'd say the American economy, a strength of the American economy is consumer spending. I think, look, I'm not an economist, not an expert on the economy. I think overall the economy is doing better than people expected. There's a lot of forecasters who worry about down the road in the next year, the impacts of the healthcare cuts, the impacts of immigration, the impacts of foreigners not people coming to immigrate, but foreign travel coming here, is all going to, and people's, the uncertainty people feel and spending less, that's all going to come to roost. Now, maybe it doesn't, in which case is why I said the impact of the economy on the 2026 election, I said, was unknown, because if the economy is going strong, that's obviously going to be good for Donald Trump and the Republicans in the midterm. If a number of these other issues have had a demonstrable negative impact on the economy, tariffs and the other things I went through, then they won't do so well. But I think it's a little early.
Kristin, which parts of the economy now do you see as weak?
Oh man, that was a trick. I was getting ready for the other one. Weak right now. I do think there is some uncertainty that kind of inspires the stock market to bump around, and I think that uncertainty kind of then trickles down and is not long term a good thing for the stability of the economy. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that particularly these trade deals land in a way where the stock market gets a little stabilized, so that we don't have that overall uncertainty. But I mean, just looking at the July 4th weekend, I mean, inflation is always the thing that people say, right? When you poll and you say, what is your number one issue? 9 times out of 10, it's cost of living. People are very concerned about the fact that they think, their prices are going up. But I mean, we had a 4th of July this past weekend where gas prices were down, the cost of food was down. And so if that stays on track, I think my concern, the weakest part, is just to make sure that trend continues and there's no major disruption to the markets and the overall consumer environment that would make that cost of living increase, particularly by November of next year.
Steve, the speaker keeps talking about another reconciliation bill in the fall and then one in the spring. Do you have any idea what he's talking about? What do you put in that?
Well, you can only do 3 things with reconciliation. You can do debt limit. We've already done that. You can do revenue, and you can do entitlement spending.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what new revenue. I mean, I guess you would have to do something. We've done the debt limit. I guess you could do something on taxes. It's hard for me to see in the current environment with what Donald Trump has said about Social Security and Medicare and now Medicaid, what we just did with Medicaid, that there'd be any more cuts you could do.
Right. Well, Kristin, what if they did this? I know Steve's going to just roll his eyes, but I'll say it anyway. You say we're not cutting Social Security. We're saving the program by saying that if you're 45 or younger, we're going to change the way your benefits are calculated.
I would I would hope that they wait until after next November to do that.
So what do you think you could do in a reconciliation bill? I find it very confusing. Steve laid it out well. He's not going to deal with entitlements. I don't know what tax agenda they still have, and they've raised the debt ceiling. So what's the speaker talking about?
Well, I mean, I'd have to just go back and look if there was anything in some of the early executive orders, particularly with taxes, that they could make permanent law, right? Because there's so many things, especially in the first week of Trump's presidency this time, where he signed so many things, so many executive orders that Congress has not made into law, because the next Democrat that comes in can very, very well undo all that. So I would look and see particularly if there's anything in those executive orders along the tax. I don't know offhand, but that would be one area where I would look. It could also be something that they said because there were some Freedom Caucus members that were upset that they weren't cutting entitlements. So maybe
Right.
it's a pipe, dream that hopefully we never see it.
All right. Lastly, there are 320 million Americans, and I read a statistic that said on 4th of July, Americans would eat 150 million hot dogs. Steve, how many did you eat?
I had no hot dogs.
No hot dogs. All
I had
right.
hamburgers.
So
I
Kristin,
I prefer a hamburger to a hot dog.
Okay. Kristin, how many did you have?
I prefer the hamburgers too. I had a cheeseburger.
I did also. So between the 3 of us, we had 0 hot dogs. So we're still searching for 150 million. 150 million. We'll see if we can get those by the end of next week. Very grateful to you both. Love having you on, and as I said, our audience loves having you on. So thank you both for again making time, and come back soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Tomorrow here on this platform, I'll be back at 9 Eastern time with a couple of guys named Sean and Dan. You might have heard of them. They'll be here. And tomorrow night at 6 o'clock Eastern, this show will be back. 2 a.m. tonight. with some special guests that I can't currently tell you who they are, but you'll like them. And then again, tomorrow night, 7:30 Eastern time, another episode of our program, Cancer Decoded. Callie Means, who works in the administration and on health issues as an advisor to the White House and to the Secretary of HHS, will join Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong and I and me for a discussion of cancer, the federal government's funding of it, the latest scientific research, and he's got some personal stories connected to cancer that you'll want to hear. As always, this program is intended to inform and comfort, and we're trying to build the biggest community ever built for those battling cancer or who have battled cancer, to connect folks in a way that allows them to feel part of something larger than themselves in a way, hopefully, again, that brings information and comfort. So please join me 3 times tomorrow, 9 a.m., 6 p.m., and 7:30 p.m., all Eastern time for those 3 programs. Grateful to you for participating. Grateful to Steve and Kristin. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Good night.